Good morning, everybody. Nick Kamada right here, right now, in the present of now. Welcome, everybody, to another amazing episode, and of course, with an amazing guest. I'm truly excited because finally, we're back to talking about something that's very close to me, one of my highest value, and we'll discover a little bit. But first of all, let's introduce our special guest. We have Mick Hensman here. Welcome in.
Thank you so much to be here and really appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to our conversation.
Awesome. As you all know, I don't know much about Mick. We have literally 2 minutes conversation before, and I already know we got to talk about money. I'll tell you right there. We got to talk a little bit about money, in a different aspect though. We'll go deep to it. But I'm a big fan of money. I love money. Money is such a beautiful thing. It's the most. I'll call it the best product you can have, money. Because money can change pretty much everything and can give you so much joy and so much pain at the same time. It's such a variable product. That's why I love it. There's so much potential and so much bad thing can happen. So that's why I'm a big fan of money. You can do a lot of things and you can miss out of a lot of things if you have money. But let's go get in your story, Meg. Tell us a little bit of your story and how all this started, why you kind of bring this topic today with us.
Sure, excited to do that. And I like the way you described it. Money can produce pleasure and pain. And that's true for all of us. That's true if you have a lot of it. It's true if you don't have much of it. It brings out those emotions. And interestingly enough, that's what I've learned through the years is that I was not a math guy. I was not a numbers guy necessarily. When I was in college, I loved Russian literature because I loved the deep emotions that came out. And what I never realized when I started this business, in this business about 40 years ago, was that the numbers really don't mean as much. It comes back to Dostoevsky and Russian authors, and it's that study of emotions because what you learn over time is there's lots of lessons. If you Google how to make money or how to invest, immediately you'll get 5 steps, 7 pillars. You get all the answers right there on the internet. So why do you need to talk to anybody? But what you find is if you haven't dealt with your emotions, the minute something weird happens, you throw all your lessons out the window and you follow your emotions. You follow your fear, your greed, your hopes, all these emotions that are common to all
Temptations.
of us, right? We think that we're different and that, oh my God, this is happening to me. But we share this as human beings, these all these emotions, and they can teach us. And so I know this is a long-winded introduction, but that's kind of where I'm coming from. And what I've learned helps both me and my clients through the years is to really be sure that we're dealing with our emotions and then finding particular tools that help us deal with our emotions when times are stressed.
That's awesome. I love it. I never heard anybody talking about money and introducing emotion as well. I think they're very connecting. And like you said, money, it's very simple. It's math. If you bring a service out there and then whatever you spend, you make more than what you spend, you should be fine. Super simple, right? That's math. One plus one
That
equal. If it's positive, you're good. It's negative, you're bad. But there's emotion in the middle. But you were
no
doing. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no question about it. And that rule is absolutely true. That
I love it.
and whether you're making a lot or a little bit, that seems to escape certain people. The whole you think if someone's making these huge salaries, they must have a lot of money. Well, not if they're buying houses and boats and whatever it is. And I've seen people with a lot of money squander it, and on the other hand, people with I've worked for teachers that now have millions of dollars saved up because of what? They saved. They
Saved.
invested. They didn't get scared when things were scary. And so that's part of it. And that's part of the training that you can do is, learn what you can spend, learn how to live a happy life with that, and then be a little calm about it. Put the
That
money away, and don't, every time some economist or some person comes on the TV and tries to scare you with certain headlines, I get scared out. And that's true not just with money. How often are we, 24 hours a day have somebody in our ear, or if you turn on the TV or the news, that they're scaring you about something. And guess what? A day or two or a week later, you won't even remember what the
you
guy or
remember.
gal was saying.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Scary sells a lot. And that's why everybody's trying to push that. But like you said, you were in wealth management, and we have to talk about a book soon. So I'm excited about that. Like just putting it out there. But wealth management. So you were in this in the industry.
Hmm.
What's that about? Explain what your job is and what wealth management does
Okay, good.
for
So, so,
companies or people. Explain me that. I have no idea.
so it's funny, when I got into the business, there wasn't a word called wealth management. There were banks that could help you out. There were
Hmm.
brokers that would try to sell you stocks, and then there were occasionally investment management companies that would help wealthy individuals manage their money.
Hmm.
I got lucky, and I worked for one of these investment managers, a very small company in Cincinnati, Ohio, focused on wealthy individuals. The lucky thing today is investment managers can help anybody. Through the years, it's changed. And so it doesn't matter whether you have a lot of money or a little money, you can get help out in the business. But this was a little company, and ironically, I of course dreamed of being this great money man, be, make millions on the Chicago Board of Trade, trading corn and soybeans or whatever it is, that movie Trading Places, where they made money on orange juice futures. That was going to be me. And of course, my first client was a wealthy older woman, a most eccentric person I've ever met, crazy in a way, but really fun. She invited me over her house every week, and I was 22 years old and just mesmerized by her. What she wanted to do was give her money away, but we
Hmm.
had to put her on a budget. And so she was earning a few $1,000s a month on dividends and interest. And she said, I want to give most of that away, pay for my retirement home, but then give it away. And so every week we would kind of creep up to her room. We'd write checks, we'd joke around. I'd read books to her. And it's kind of what I learned was managing people wasn't just managing their money. It was working with them, and it was understanding what they wanted. Ironically enough, she had stocks that her parents had bought her in the 30s, like during the Depression. So by 1980, they had these huge gains. And there were such large gains, if you sold them, the taxes you paid were huge. And so we
Yeah.
didn't do anything with her stocks. I helped her out with her checks and this and that. And, but what I found was we were trading for other people, trying to get in the market, out of the market, do things to try to maximize. With Eloise, we just kind of let the stocks run. Well, guess
Hmm.
what? At the end of each year, you'd say, who did the best? And guess who was doing the best? Eloise, who was doing nothing in the market. And so that was my first lesson in the stock market, was that sometimes doing nothing was better than doing something. And you don't have to be
Interesting.
that active. And so when you have a good stock, let it run. Don't try to, the first time you trade, if you traded Apple the first time it went from 2 to 4 and said, oh my God, I got a double. Good for me. Well,
Take
look
the
at the
money out.
gains you left out. I mean, Apple is still one of the best stocks in the New York Stock Exchange. You would have given up all those profits by getting out too early. And so, these were some of the first lessons I learned. And then the second lesson was I had to go to the library, and they wanted we got a new computer, one of the first portable computers there were, I think. It was as portable as a couch, but it was, smaller than normal.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I bet.
we had to fill it with data. And of course, there was no internet back then. I had to go to the library so I could input this data into the computer. But while I'm looking through old newspapers, I'm reading the headlines. And what struck me was every other week, the world was coming to an end. Whether it was 1933 or 1941 with Pearl Harbor, or the Kennedy assassination, or little things in between, something was always out there to scare you. But when you saw the next week and you'd say, huh, things moved along and somehow we
Nothing
survived it.
happened.
And it kind of put in my mind that this is going to go on forever. And you think, when we read about things today and you think, oh my God, it's never happened before. Guess what? It's been happening before for thousands of years. And so that was my second big lesson is try to minimize the news. Of course, there's some things we need to pay attention to, but most of the time we can settle down, not worry about things, and even when big things happen, this too shall pass is one of the great phrases ever, because things do pass.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's awesome. That amazing. Two good lessons that I wish we could learn the same way as every day. I think, since there's a age gap between me and you, nowadays I can see how simpler and more, I would call ignorant, but in a good way, life was, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, compared to now that we have so many information and easy access to as well. We don't have to go to a library to find information. Or when I was a kid, there was, this
Right.
big encyclopedia to throw a page and see what's word was there. Now with a little phone here, I have any information possible in my hand in less than half a second. So this is amazing and powerful, but how scary it is to exactly what you were talking about, to connect emotions to what's going on today. Why Robert Kiyosaki is telling everybody that the world is gonna end tomorrow, and why there was like half 6 months ago or a year ago that the US dollar was gonna crash and we get a whole die, and just like it still didn't happen, nothing. It was still here, still the dollar is up there doing fine enough. Just it's crazy how, even with all those years, we're still the same routine, the same things happen, same things that we need to, at this point, be aware and be protected by.
No question. And yeah, and one of the unfortunate things that I was thinking when you were talking with the phone, and all the information out there, at least in the old days, when you walked into a library, there was a section that called nonfiction, that which was actually, and then there was the fiction section, that which was made up. With our phones, there's none of that. We don't know
It's
what's
all,
fiction and
we don't
nonfiction.
know if which one is fiction or not.
No, that's true. So, that's certainly something we need to deal with. And of course, our own emotions. I think so much we go about our days and we don't think about, how to react to fear. You know, when the market's going down, I think people think us professionals, that work in the business, oh well, we must, know what to do. We're scared to death. We get our fear too. When the pandemic hit, don't think we were, watching the stock market drop and going, oh my God. And then we were running to the grocer, getting our own toilet paper, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it
yeah.
it but the difference is that when we feel certain things, we actually know, hey, this is telling me we're closer to the bottom of something than we are to the top. or you learn to pay attention to your own emotions, and that can help you in the markets. And part of what I've learned through the years is just because your emotion wants to tell you to sell, it doesn't mean that you have to sell,
Yeah.
and you kind of follow this, you create a discipline. And I think when you think of how professionals can help and how investment managers can help through hopefully what they can do is listen to you, know your long-term objectives, focus on them, and then when times are tough, remind you, hey, we're here for the long term. In the end, you want to kind of have a mindset like Eloise, my first client, where let things
Don't do
go.
nothing about it.
Now, it was easy for her because she wasn't paying attention. She was paying attention to giving her money away, and she assumed that I was watching. But for most of us, we are watching. As you're saying, money is interesting, and we look at our portfolios, and so we need to follow certain disciplines to make sure that when times are tough and that we're hanging in there.
It's good that you say that because that's kind of a question. If me as a just passionate about money and I love to read about the stock and this and I love to inform myself. I just finished to read Ray Dalio, The Economic Cycle, I think was called. Amazing
Mhm.
book, how every 20 years there's the same economical cycle coming up. Um, Compared to trust a professional like you does help. I think the main reason, not only of the knowledge that you guys offer, is more of the emotional support, emotional disattachment that you have. Because if I, give that kind of a part of knowing investment and make sure everything gets growing and it's producing earning interest to you, I don't have to worry about it. Even if I'm worried, it's kind of a delegated to you as a professional.
That's right. And by setting objectives, part of that is understanding what risk you do have in the market. I remember talking to a retired person last year, and it's ironic that a year ago, the market had just gone down in 2021 about 20%. And people were all talking about this huge recession that was going to be coming because interest rates had risen. And yet the economy was still growing. Interest rates had risen, but they weren't above historic norms. They were just higher than they used to be. And so, in the face of that, we weren't seeing bankruptcies. We weren't seeing banks, having, huge risk. And so it was easy to say to clients, hey, this isn't, necessarily a time to jump in and be aggressive, but it's surely not a time to sell, even though all these people are out there predicting doom and gloom. And the other thing that's kind of funny is a lot of the doom and gloomers are always doom and gloomers. They're always predicting the end of the world. And so you
Every
look back
year,
and every and there is an expression of if you say the same thing long enough, eventually you might be right.
you might be
But
right.
but but from a different level. Well, ironically, last year, 2023, was the mirror image. The market goes up 25%. So should we get extra excited? Oh my God, now it's moving. Well, no, stick to our objectives. So one particular client I remember talking to, and he had about half his money in stocks and half of it in cash and short-term bonds. And he was saying, Mick, I'm worried. I'm worried that what if we do have this recession? What if this
Mhm.
happens? And so we looked at what was the income that was coming in from his portfolio. And he was saying, oh, I don't spend all that money. So I've got enough income coming in.
Yeah.
And I said, now, okay, let's look at how much money you have in stocks. Say it does go down again. Say it does go down another 20%. So your X amount of dollars will go down a certain amount, at least temporarily, but you still have all this money in cash that won't go down. So the whole portfolio might only go down 7 or 8 or 9%, even if the market went down another 20%. And then you ask the question, is that okay? Will
Yeah.
you sleep at night? There's an old expression, take money down to the sleeping level. And so if something terrible happens, are you okay? And he looks at me and he says, I'm fine. I don't need to worry at all. That's the key. That's the key of hopefully what investment managers can do is set an objective that no matter what happens, you can sleep at night, but also take advantage of the good times.
It
That have enough stocks that allow you to make money over a long period of time, but not too much stocks that will scare you when the unpredictable event will happen.
It's simply called planning. Okay, well, what I plan this for a reason. So, worst, you plan for the worst, you plan for the best. So that's
Exactly.
lovely.
And the planning is what can deal with your emotions. That's the discipline. There's also another discipline that's kind of interesting is, and again, let's just take a simple example that you have 50% in stocks and 50% in kind of safe assets, cash and bonds maybe. And let's say the stock market does go up a lot. And so because it goes up, that portion of your portfolio will start rising. Just again, with math working like that, maybe now after the market goes up, you have 55 or 60% in stocks because naturally the market went up. Well, you don't have to look at it every day, but say at some point during the year you see 55, 60% and you say, oh, my objective is 50. I should cut back.
I
So you
should
take
cut
some
back.
profits back to that 50%. Well, what does that naturally do? Naturally, you're selling at a higher level. And of course, if it goes down and now you've got 40 or
You're buying
45%, you're buying at a lower
at a
level.
lower level.
Well, there's the old expression, buy low, sell high, which sounds so obvious. But unless we have a discipline, most of the time, fear causes us to sell low and excitement causes us to buy high. And so it's the discipline. And I wish I could brag to you that I predicted every decline and every rise. But most of the time that I was selling at a higher level and buying at a lower level was because of this discipline. It wasn't because I was so smart in understanding every little detail about predicting the future. My crystal ball is about as fuzzy as everyone else's. And
Yeah.
so, yes, there are times I might have an intuition about something, but would I trust betting the whole portfolio on that intuition? No. Most of the time, follow the discipline. And for the average person who doesn't want to jump in and out all the time, that's what I would recommend. And over a long period of time, you'll find success.
I think that readjusting the right proportion, it's something I learned, I think was Anthony Robbins' book, one of his millions books that he wrote. And it was just open-minded for me. It was crazy because like you said, it's so important. Sometimes some people just leave money there and forget about it and goes up and down, go up and down and do his own thing. Other people are too scared and get emotional and that completely take it the wrong time. But if you have that proportion set up and when you get 55% instead of 50, you take the money and putting on on a different portfolio. It's so powerful because like you said, you've taken the perfect timing and it brings you the right exactly like the goal that you're trying to achieve. How risky you want your portfolio, that's depend of you. It depends on how young you are or how crazy you are. But
Right.
exactly following that proportion is so important, and sometimes we forgot about that unless we follow, you know, an expert like you, a professional like you.
Well, and it also works with individual stocks because, and you have to have that, that discipline and that willingness to to believe that for the long term that's the right thing. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you have that Apple stock and it goes from 2 to 6, let's say. Well, now it's not 3% of your portfolio, it's 6% of your portfolio because it's going up faster than everything else. Well, you don't have to sell the whole thing because then you're out of that position. But you could trim a little bit, take a
Mm-hmm.
little bit off the top, and that way it's not going to keep, being a major part of the portfolio. Now, when that happens, and I've done that for people, they say, "Well, do you think Apple's going to go down?" Well, sometimes it goes down a little bit, but and then it goes up again. And I say, no, we're rooting for Apple. We still have a big portion of Apple.
Yes.
We're just making sure that if it does go down, if Apple turns into BlackBerry, we don't, there used to, everyone had a BlackBerry 20 years ago.
Oh yeah.
I don't know who has one now except maybe in their closet. And so that stock
Yes.
too
Yeah.
was if you held on to that and never sold, you would have gone from, who knows what it went on at the height, but at the bottom, it wasn't worth a whole lot. It's worth about as much as the BlackBerry is in your closet. And so by taking a little bit off the top as something is going up assures you that you have that you've taken some profits along the way. And I still believe Apple's potentially a great company, but do I want it to be 30% of my portfolio? And I don't want to be dependent on any one company because I've seen people who do that. Once it starts going down, it's very hard to sell. And so the best way is to take, just like we talked about the market thing where you take some profits when things are up, same thing with individual stocks. Well, and not to take this too extreme, but say you got lucky. I didn't, by the way. Bitcoin and all these
Oh
cryptocurrency
yeah. Oh
things.
yeah.
Um, I, never understood it. Don't believe that. I still don't understand it, but certainly someone did. Someone got into it and put that $1,000 in, and maybe it became 40 or 50 or 100. Who knows? Well, if they didn't take any profits along the way, when Bitcoin crashed, last year, that would have been a pretty unfortunate thing. So again, even if you happen to get lucky with one of these weird meta, meme stocks or crypto or whatever it is, take some money out along the way. Maybe you're, smart enough to have gotten in or lucky in that case. Beanie Babies, back in the 90s were a hit. These fluffy little animals that people were putting college education money in. At some point, they're, back to being soft little toys for kids and they didn't help with college education. But
No. No. Yeah. No. For the crypto, I didn't get lucky, but I achieved my goals. I select few things and I double my money 3 or 4 times with the specific ones. So I was more of a goal and a short-term goals orientated, and I got lucky. The only time I lost money on this crypto world when I follow my emotion. There
mm,
was the whatever it's called. It was super famous with Elon Musk. Dogecoin, yes, that little
yeah.
the Dogecoin, and we were at work, and everybody was putting money. Everybody, I just won, and I just double, and I had some money, from this good um, kind of shortage that I did with this cryptos. Like everybody were talking, and from kind of a despite to others, like sure, I'll put some money in there. And then I put the money at the exactly the wrong time just because it was more of emotional a kind of a action compared to a plan or a goal-oriented action that bring me money. And that was my experience with that. I didn't put $1 million for sure, but it was extremely, extremely funny to see if you follow the rules. I couldn't make even more money with all my crypto, but I stopped right in my goal, just double the money, and I did it 3 or 4 times, and I make my profit. It was everything smooth. And when the only time in the crypto world, I follow those emotions and they just completely went down south so quickly.
That
Literally a
is.
week later, I lost pretty much all of it. Oh, I don't know much of it. There weren't a lot of money, but it was hilarious how emotion gets so much. going on with money.
Well, it's good too that story though is really important, I think, because none of us get away without learning these lessons. You know, and there's a guy that wrote a book about 100 years ago, great trader, and he always said, we're all going to make mistakes. That's our tuition payment. And so you can
Yeah.
learn from it, or you can blame a bunch of other people and not learn anything at all. And so what you're describing is exactly how we should approach our mistakes, is treat them as tuition payments. Same thing in life. You know, we get into relationships, or we do this or we do that, and we walk away. And if all we do is have bad feelings about something, we're not learning anything. And in my experience, when I've walked away without, trying to take the lesson, guess what? It's going to repeat.
Oh
It's
yeah.
going to repeat until I do learn that lesson. And
Thank you,
life
learn.
is life is full of the universe seems to provide what we need in terms of learning and growing, and that's true in the stock market as it is in our lives.
That's absolutely right. And you kind of talk a little bit all the stories and what you can bring in your book, correct?
Correct. That's and I guess as you could imagine, the way I learned investing or anything else is through my experiences. And so what I didn't want to do is write a dry book about, how to do this or that. There's plenty of books out there for that, but what I
More a
wanted to do,
manual than a book. It's just like,
exactly. And so I wanted to draw on my own personal experiences, and that in itself was a lesson. I've been a fairly private person, growing up and not sharing, and so sharing about some of my relationships that ended, or things that happened with my mom or my dad, but these were all lessons in my life. Working through relationships with my dad taught me that competition, although positive, can overwhelm us. For example, if we're trying to compete with the market, prove that we're smarter than it, believe me, it will win in the end. And so if we grew up believing everything is competition,
hmm
that's gonna defeat us. And it was defeating me. And it's a funny thing, once I worked through that relationship with my dad, the whole competition thing kind of relaxed. It doesn't mean that when I get on a tennis court, I don't want to do well and hit the ball well. But on the other hand, it doesn't overwhelm me, and so this is, one chapter out of 10, out of 12, but different things in my life that I learned, I thought really applied to not just investing well, but living a good life. And so that's what I wanted to pass on through these stories. And my hope would be that, of course, that some people would learn from my stories, but that also they would see that through their own stories, they
hmm
could learn their lessons. And for me, when people talk about their story, it becomes interesting. That's how what weaves me in. And when I'm in a textbook, I tend to fall asleep. So anyway, that was the point of the book, was to kind of do it through stories and make it an engaging and hopefully fun and funny. Things in our lives, once things pass, tend to be funny even if they weren't at the time. And
Oh
so
yeah.
I kind of try to add a little humor along the way.
That's awesome. Now I'm extremely curious to read this book. It's and it's a pretty mellow book, right? What's the title?
Yeah, exactly. It's called Mellow Your Money: How to Surf the
Mellow
Market.
Your Money.
And then the subtitle is How to Surf the Market and Build Wealth Without Stressing Yourself Out. And
Wow. Take my money. There's a meme that says, "Take all my money." This is will be a dream for pretty much every person in this planet. Every human being will be surfing the market, gain profit without being stressed out.
and that's right. And by doing some of the things we talked about today, ironically, I threw surfing in there because I do live in San Diego. And when I first moved out here about 20 years ago, my boys were very young. And so we all learned how to surf. They actually became good surfers. I became, a bumbling, stumbling, but occasional surfer. But it too taught me some lessons about the market. You know, I found when I was first beginning, I kept like looking down at the board, looking down at the water, and finding I was going right where my eyes were looking, down into the water. And it was only when I looked towards shore, when I looked to where I wanted to go, that's when I was able to stand up and get some of those moments of joy. And as I was thinking about it years later, I thought, again, a lesson in the stock market. If we're looking down, if we're looking at every minute detail about what's going to happen, we're going to fail, we're going to stumble. But if we look towards our long-term objective, look towards the shore, that's when we're going to get that smooth ride. And so I know I've probably overdone this analogy, but that was part of the thought of the book too.
That's lovely. That's kind of very good way to learn. Comparing to something, a lot of surfer out there will probably start investing in her a lot of money if they read your book, because it's fantastic how I was thinking while you were talking, I was thinking all those daily trading, what's it called? Day trading people that
Exactly.
just like stored all this money in very short time and make it a huge profit, and then tomorrow is another day, another market, another small amount of difference that we can make profit.
It's
How
interesting though. With the day trading, I should say that that was my dream, of course, to be a great trader. And I actually was at a seminar one time, and I met this great trader. He had made, I think that year he had made like 30 or 40 million dollars trading on the Chicago Board of Trade. And he told this small group of us, he said, "I'm going to tell you exactly how I make money. This is how I trade." And he said, and you know what? A year from now, I'll come back, and I bet none of you follow my rules. And we're go looking, thinking, no, challenge accepted. We're going to
totally
be
accept it?
great traders. Well, if you follow a certain discipline, I do believe there are people who can trade and make money, but it's a full-time job, and you have to have the right psychological mindset for it. Well, guess what? I didn't. My psychological mindset is to help people over the long term. Over the short term, you have to be willing to lose a lot of times in a row for that.
Exactly, and how stressful could be to have this kind of a alteration. How stressful it is to stay there. Yeah, wake up in the morning when market's open. Nowadays, it's open 24/7, so that even more pressure on you, and try to make exactly the right decision every single time without even thinking about be disattached by emotion. How is that mellow or stressful? Emotional money? There was something that we were saying, and then it
I
got
think
cut
we were
off.
just saying, we were just probably finishing up talking that short-term day trading is for certain people with certain mindsets. You have to know yourself. And the key to this, the trading strategies oftentimes are you have to be willing to lose on a number of stocks, number of trades in a row, not be emotional, and then allow the big ones to win. But losing 8, 9, 10 times in a row, that's not for everybody. And so it wasn't for me. So
Oh, I bet. No, I don't think it's that for me. I try as well because, like, telling everybody, I love money. I always try to fun way to to earn money. I think it's fun. What I love about money is they give you a lot of opportunity and ability to meet more people. As I, trying to meet here, and I think I enjoy talking to you. I enjoyed the way that you talk about money, not like most people, they were just tell you this is the secret sauce. This is the best thing you do. You become a millionaire tomorrow. It's more of a mellow approach, more of a relaxed approach. there are some people that are extremely. You need to have the personality to have one of those people that make $1 million overnight, uh, get the super hit on the crypto. I believe for the most common people, they have hobbies and work and kind of uh, the majority of us, they love helping people. A mellow system, it's the system that we need to work. So
And what I would tell people is it can work. If you stick to it, if you stick to your plan, and you're a younger person, your 20s or 30s, and you stick with the plan, you'll have more money than you could have imagined over many, many years if you can stick to the plan. And sometimes that takes courage, because
mhm.
everybody around you is bragging about this or bragging about that, and to just stick to your plan and try to drown out the noise is not as easy as it sounds, because there's a lot of noise around us. But if you do, there can be great success, and I've seen it over a long period of time with a lot of my clients.
That's awesome. Where we can find your book? I'm gonna go order.
Yeah, Mellow Your Money is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and there's of course there's Kindle and hardback and soft cover, and even an audio book if people like to listen. You now know what my voice sounds like, so if that doesn't start driving you nuts, you could listen to the book too.
If you enjoyed this this voice, you might get the audiobook as well. I'm a big hardcover person. I love touching and feeling the book and have that kind of sensation. So I'm going order the soft book or the hardcover and enjoying this one. I'm curious to know what you need to share. We explore a few things so far, so good. So basically, we know that if you have a plan, just to summarize a little bit, because a lot of people love to have the ABC out to win the money uh, in this industry. I think there's few things that you can do. It's more of disattach yourself, your emotion with money. That's very important rules. Proportion the right way that you think. That's another one. Very, very successful one. And diversification of your portfolio. And we talked a little bit as well. But the main focus is don't think about money if you want money. I don't know I let you
I,
close this,
I
but
love your summary. You exactly kind of sum up, I think, the important parts, and your last point is really important too. Is oftentimes, by even if we want a goal, by focusing too much on that goal, you almost undo the good things. And so set that goal and move on. And I've always thought people, instead of watching the news one day, listen to your podcast, listen to other podcasts that can teach you something. Much better use of our days than worrying about every little detail of what's going on with politics or whatever the heck it is.
that's amazing. Thank you so much, Mick. If you want a relaxed experience with money, go get this amazing book of Mick, Mellow Your All Your Money. And thank you so much, Mick. Very, very appreciate your presence. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. And for all of you, I'll see you in the next episode.
And thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.